off, but I did have a question.
Yeah.
Coach?
Which one?
Yeah, I've brought this up before, and maybe I'm not phrasing it, or maybe I don't understand the entire process, but in the contracts of 25,000 or more, in some of the categories, there are contracts less than 25,000. Nevertheless, if my count is right, there are 41, and there are 2 that have asterisks, indicating either a minority or female or disability-owned business. I'm just still puzzled that of that extent of contracts awarded, the number that fall into those other categories is so small, and it almost reminds me, and sometimes in some other areas where we hear, well, you know, we don't have enough qualified applicants, or they didn't apply, or whatever. In a community such as ours, it just seems to me maybe there's some efforts we can make to attract companies or corporations, etc., to jump in, because on the surface that really doesn't look like a good track record.
We do provide the board with the quarterly reports. I mean, perhaps we need to set aside some time to have a broader discussion at the board table with all of our efforts. There is an attachment that we have provided as this process has evolved, so that we just don't report quarterly, but on each of the individual bids, we show how many vendors were mailed the RFP, how many MFD vendors there were, how many of them applied, and then how many received the bids. And so we keep a lot of information, and we try to share with the board quarterly all of our efforts to improve these statistics, because that certainly is our goal. As you know, in the quarterly reports, we have a 10% goal. We've exceeded that in terms of the total dollar value. But again, it may be good just for a board discussion sometime at the board table or in a committee to discuss our efforts to improve this and to do a better job.
Let me recommend that we start with the Fiscal Management Committee. There are a couple things that we have done previously. One was to look at the process that we go through in terms of when in fact there is a RFP, or if there is a contract that's needed, and all of the steps that we go through. What are the efforts that we make to make sure that we see minority, female, or disabled-owned businesses participating in getting contracts from our system? So I think we start there, and kind of from that, if we can then bring that to the full board, I think that would be appropriate. The other piece would be to have a better understanding of what our goals are. You know, there are obligations that we have when we look at our construction contracts, and kind of how those rules have changed over time, because I believe in the time that I've been here, there have been rules that have changed at the state level in terms of what our obligations are, and our reporting obligations, along with, you know, the actual obligations in terms of contracts that either need to be subs or whatever it is. So I think it's helpful to start it at the Fiscal Management Committee, but then also to organize that and consolidate it for a presentation to the full board. So, you know, in following up on your question, that's my advice in terms of how to proceed. Okay?
With that, I'll move the rest